One moment he was a cop drunk on power, confident, untouchable. The next, he was face to face with a man who would teach him the hardest lesson of his life. What started as routine harassment quickly spiraled into a reckoning he never saw coming. And the way it all ends, you won't believe it. Here's how it all unfolded. Don't forget to subscribe to Racism Watchdog and turn on notifications to follow this powerful story and stay updated. The night air was thick with humidity, the neon glow of the gas station sign flickering as cars rumbled by on the busy intersection. Atlanta, a city with a history of racial tensions, was alive with movement, horns blaring, pedestrians strolling along the sidewalks, and the occasional burst of laughter from a nearby group of teenagers. The rhythmic chime of the gas pump piqued his Malik Carter. A towering, well-built black man stood beside his sleek, black Dodge Charger, refueling his car. His posture was relaxed, but his presence commanded attention. Then came the sharp wail of a siren. A police cruiser screeched to a stop just feet away, the red and blue lights flashing ominously, bathing the pavement in color. A tall, broad-shouldered white police officer emerged, his hand hovering over his holster. His nameplate read, Officer Bradley. His eyes locked onto Malik with suspicion, scanning him up and down as if he were already guilty of something. "Hey, hands where I can see them," Bradley barked. Malik, unfazed, turned slowly, his hands still gripping the pump handle. "Something wrong, officer?" Bradley's lips curled. "You match the description of a suspect we're looking for. Step away from the car, now." A few bystanders at the pumps turned their heads. Some froze, their eyes darting between the two men, while others instinctively reached for their phones. Malik took a measured breath, his mind processing the situation with the precision of a man trained for high-stakes encounters. He wasn't just any man, but he wasn't about to tell Bradley that. "I don't see how that's possible," Malik said calmly. "I just got here. Haven't done anything wrong." Bradley stepped closer, now inches from Malik. "I don't care what you think. You fit the description. Hands on the car. Now." Malik's muscles tensed, but his expression remained neutral. "I know my rights, officer. You have no probable cause." Bradley's face darkened. He had unfastened the strap on his holster. "You resisting? Because that'd be a mistake." The onlookers grew more restless. A mother clutched her young son's hand and hurried him inside the store. A man in a business suit hesitated, phone in hand, before hitting record. The tension in the air thickened like a brewing storm. Malik exhaled slowly. "I'm not resisting. I'm just saying I won't be unlawfully searched." Bradley sneered. "You got something to hide? That it? What's in the car? Drugs? Stolen property?" Malik let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "Nothing illegal, officer. Just my wallet, gym bag, and some groceries." Bradley wasn't listening. His hand closed over the grip of his gun as he pulled his radio up. "Got a possible 10 to 32 here. Black male, 6'3", around 240 pounds, uncooperative, sending backup." A murmur rippled through the growing crowd. "Uncooperative? He's just standing there," someone whispered. Another voice called out, "Leave the man alone." Malik, still unmoving, watched Bradley carefully. He had dealt with men like him before, men who let power get to their heads, who mistook authority for dominance. But this wasn't a battlefield, and Malik wasn't an enemy combatant. He was just a man trying to get home. The distant howl of another siren approached, hitting louder. Backup was coming. The situation was about to spiral. But Officer Bradley had no idea who he was dealing with. Malik Carter was more than just an ordinary man. He was a former Navy SEAL, a warrior trained in combat, de-escalation, and survival. And if this officer thought he was going to intimidate him, he was in for a rude awakening. The gas station was buzzing with muted conversations and the hum of engines, headlights slicing through the darkness. The aggressive officer, Officer Reynolds, tightened his grip on his belt, his stance widening. His face was contorted with suspicion, his voice sharp as a blade. I said, "Hands where I can see them," he barked, stepping closer. The red and blue lights from his patrol car cast an eerie glow over the pavement. Marcus Johnson, standing tall and composed, kept his hands relaxed at his sides. His breathing remained steady, his heart rate unchanged despite the tension in the air. He had been in situations far more hostile than this, combat zones where real threats lurked in the shadows. Yet here he was in his own country, being treated as if he were a criminal. "I haven't done anything wrong, officer," Marcus said, his voice firm but measured. "I'd like to know what I'm being accused of." "You match the description of a suspect," Reynolds shot back, his fingers twitching near his holster. "Black male, tall, muscular build. That's enough for me." A few bystanders had begun to gather at a distance, murmuring among themselves. Some had their phones out, recording, knowing all too well how encounters like this could turn deadly. A woman clutched her child's hand, pulling him behind her protectively. The tension crackled in the air like static electricity. Reynolds took another step forward, his chest puffed out. "Turn around and place your hands on the car. I'm searching you." Marcus exhaled slowly. "That won't be necessary." That was all it took to set Reynolds off. His face darkened with anger, and he reached for his cuffs. "You're resisting." Marcus didn't move. His feet were planted, his shoulders relaxed but poised. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to handle this situation carefully. He had been trained in de-escalation tactics just as well as he had been trained in combat. He had seen what happened when fear took over, when untrained men with power let their emotions dictate their actions. "I know my rights," Marcus said, his voice unwavering. "Unless you have probable cause, you cannot search me." Reynolds' patience snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing Marcus' wrist, intent on forcing him into compliance. But he wasn't dealing with an ordinary man. In a fluid motion, Marcus pivoted, slipping free from Reynolds' grip as effortlessly as if he were shaking off a light breeze. He didn't fight. He didn't push. He simply moved with precision, redirecting the officer's force against him, maintaining full control. The onlookers gasped. A young black teenager, no older than 16, stepped forward slightly, eyes wide with recognition. "Yo, that's Marcus Johnson," he whispered to the person next to him. "Navy SEAL. This dude's a legend." The murmur spread through the small crowd. Some nodded, others whispered in disbelief. A middle-aged man pulled out his phone, quickly searching the name. Within seconds, the realization hit. Marcus Johnson wasn't just any man. He was a decorated war hero, a man who had spent years serving his country at the highest level of combat training. But Reynolds wasn't listening. His pride was injured, and that was more dangerous than anything else in that moment. "Back up now." Reynolds snapped into his radio, his face red with fury. "Suspect is resisting." Another police car pulled up, and a second officer stepped out. Unlike Reynolds, this one, a younger man named Officer Bradley, hesitated. His eyes darted to Marcus, then to the crowd, then back to Reynolds. "Reynolds," he said in a hushed but urgent tone. "You sure about this?" Reynolds ignored him. "Put your hands behind your back," he ordered, stepping forward again. Marcus stood firm. "Officer, I suggest you take a moment to assess the situation." Reynolds saw it as defiance. He lunged again. This time Marcus acted. With a single controlled movement, he shifted his weight, deflecting Reynolds' momentum. A precise sweep of the leg, a careful redirection of force, and within seconds, Reynolds found himself flat on the pavement, his arm twisted just enough to immobilize him without causing injury. The crowd gasped again. A few people cheered. Marcus didn't press down. He didn't hurt the man. He simply held him there, effortlessly, as if restraining a rowdy child. "Officer," he said, his voice calm, "I suggest you reconsider your approach." Bradley rushed forward, his hands raised. "Stop, stop," he urged. Marcus released Reynolds, stepping back with deliberate patience. He wasn't here to hurt anyone. He had made his point. Reynolds scrambled to his feet, his face pale with shock. He looked around, suddenly realizing that nearly every single person had their phone out, recording. A deep, authoritative voice cut through the moment. "I'd stand down if I were you." An older man stepped forward from the crowd. He was in civilian clothes, but his posture and presence were unmistakable. A retired military officer. He stepped up to Marcus and saluted. "Marcus Johnson," he said with quiet respect. "Didn't think I'd ever see you out here." Marcus returned the salute. "Neither did I." Reynolds' face turned ghostly white as the realization set in. He hadn't just harassed a random black man. He had harassed a Navy SEAL, a decorated war hero, and now the entire world was watching. The sound of police sirens wails in the distance as flashing red and blue lights reflect off the gas station's glass windows. The air is thick with tension. Marcus Johnson, the decorated Navy SEAL, remains calm, his broad shoulders squared, his expression unreadable. Across from him, the arrogant cop stumbles backward, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. The second officer, eyes wide with realization, discreetly steps away, not wanting to be caught in the storm brewing around them. Within minutes, another patrol car pulls up, but this time it's not just another beat cop. The police chief himself steps out, his face set in a grim, unreadable mask. His arrival is no coincidence. Word has already spread. Social media is ablaze with videos of the altercation, and local news stations are picking up the story. He strides toward the scene, his gaze shifting between the SEAL, the aggressive officer, and the murmuring crowd. "What the hell is going on here?" the chief demands, his voice cutting through the commotion. The officer, now visibly nervous, scrambles to defend himself. "Sir, I was just trying to control the situation." He was resisting, a bystander shouts. "We saw everything. That man did nothing wrong." Another voice rises from the crowd. "He's a hero. And you treated him like a criminal. How many others have you done this to?" The weight of the moment presses down. The chief slowly turns to Marcus, taking in his unshaken stance. The SEAL hasn't spoken much. He hasn't needed to. The truth is already out in the open. With a deep breath, the chief turns back to the officer. "Turn in your badge. Pending an internal investigation, you're relieved of duty." Gasps ripple through the onlookers. The arrogant cop stares, disbelief and rage flickering across his face. "Sir, you can't." "I just did." The chief's tone is final. The second officer steps forward, reluctant but obedient. He takes his partner's badge and sidearm, sealing his fate. The once cocky cop is now just another man stripped of his power, his authority reduced to nothing in mere minutes. The crowd erupts into cheers and applause. A mother holds her child close, whispering words of relief. The young black teenager who had spoken up earlier stands taller, eyes filled with admiration. Marcus turns to him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Always stand your ground," he says, his voice calm but firm. "But never let anger control you. Knowledge, discipline, and unity, that's how we win." The teenager nods, his chest swelling with newfound determination. The moment is not lost on the crowd. It's bigger than this one incident. It's a symbol of change, of awareness, of the power that comes with standing together. As news reporters arrive, their cameras capturing every detail, headlines begin to flood the internet. Viral video exposes racial profiling incident. High-ranking military veteran speaks out. The footage loops on television screens across the nation, igniting conversations, debates, and calls for justice. The video ends on the defeated expression of the disgraced cop, his career and reputation in freefall. But more importantly, it ends on the faces of the people, empowered, aware, and ready to demand change. This isn't just one incident. It's a movement. Stand up. Speak out. Change begins with us. The story may have ended, but the fight for justice is far from over. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Racism Watchdog. Turn on notifications to follow this powerful story and stay updated on the next chapter.